Hello, everybody. This is Tina Salinas from We Are the Voice for the Silenced and Afflicted. We are here again for another special edition podcast with Kathy Lester. She is another grandmother that unfortunately is dealing with the family court and CPS corruption. Hi, Kathy, and thank you so much for joining us. I will give the floor to you.
Thank you. And mostly, first of all, thank you for having me on. Um, this is a really important matter. Um, my case began in 2011, so we're now in 2021. I'm an activist now. I worked for Social Security for 12 years as a federal public servant, and I was a registered process server for 8 years. And then prior to that, I worked in the legal field as a paralegal in civil litigation. Um, Nothing prepared me for what I'm about to share. Um, I only have one child, and she's a girl. She'll be 33 this month, July 30th. In 2011, when I was at work, I got a phone call, and then I called back on my break. It was my daughter, and at that time, she was homeless, heroin addicted, and living on the streets. Um, as a loving mother, it began in '09. So time progressed, and she was stealing from our home and not wanting to get sober. So I had to tough love her. Went to Al Anon on ways to learn how to cope with it and try to keep a family workable. And so I learned a lot from Al Anon, and I had been enabling her. So I had to tough love, and I had to ask her to leave. And it didn't start out as bad as it is now. She, at one time, at least had an apartment with her boyfriend, and they were using Oxycontin, smoking it. After they could no longer afford those illegal pills because they were buying them illegally, they both moved to black tar heroin. And this is where the story begins. So sooner than later, their addiction gets bigger and harder, and uh, they don't pay their rent. They get evicted from that apartment, and they end up living on the streets in Monterey County, California, which is where I'm out of, and living in the streets in tents in abandoned cars. It's like our local Skid Row. And I was still, having a hard time with tough love because she's my only child, and I was raised to love unconditionally. And I was still having a hard time with going and taking her food and doing what any normal mother would do, but still pleading with her to get into recovery. So fast forward, uh, it was November 2011. I get that call, and then I call her back, and she's, Mom, what are you doing? I said, I'm working. And she said, Well, I have some good news. And I said, Are you in recovery? And she said, No, Mom, I'm pregnant. And what would have been like a very exciting time for a grandmother, um, it was exciting, but it was fearful because I knew how bad her addiction was. And I said, Well, what are you going to do? And she said, Keep it. And I raised her in the church, so I kind of already knew abortion would not be an option, and I don't believe in abortion. But for God's sake, at this time, I was hoping she would consider, um, because again, I knew how bad her addiction was. So, no, Mom, I'm having the baby. And I said, Okay, but you've got to get into an inpatient rehab, and you've got to get to an OBGYN so that you can get the proper prenatal care that you need. And that's when Obama was in office, and he had increased the federal insurance for employees, which would cover their children until they were 26. So The wonderful part of that is that her and the birth of my grandson was completely covered by my federal insurance. Excuse me. So I gave her the card. She promised me she would get an OBGYN and that she would go into an inpatient rehab. So
May
I,
may I ask real quick, did the was the doctor that she was going to, the OBGYN, were they aware of her situation at that time while she was pregnant or no?
no. So that's what I was just leading into. So 2 to 3 weeks had gone by, and I knew she still was not in an inpatient rehab, and I was getting, well, I at least got one of the billing statements from the Blue Cross Blue Shield, that showed the doctor. It's a explanation of benefits. So the mail came to my home. So fortunately, I knew the doctor's name, and because she had not gotten into rehab, I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I couldn't physically make her do it, even though I wanted to. Um, I thought, what should I do? And I said, call the doctor. So I called that doctor's office and they allowed me to speak to his nurse. And I said, my name is so and so, and I'm the mother of Alyssa Avery, and she's one of your patients. And I'm very concerned that she may not be telling the doctor, her some of her private issues. And she said, well, what is that, ma'am? And I said, well, she's a heroin addict. And she had promised me she was going to get into rehab, but she hasn't. And I'm very concerned for the unborn fetus. And she said, I will bring it to the doctor's attention immediately. So the way it goes is, of course, she went to her next appointment, and the doctor apparently asked her about it very gently and, out of concern. And whatever was discussed apparently scared her enough to where she never went back. So then, because this is before I knew about corruption, I was a federal employee. I was what I would say, an outstanding citizen in my community. I've been in my community for 58 years. In other words, my entire life. I don't even have a speeding ticket. Both my hands are registered with the FBI for both the kinds of jobs that I did, working for Social Security and also as a registered process server. So I had a very clean background. I mean, I had to pass a criminal background. Um, so, anyways, the next thing I do, as I'm trying I'm asking God, who can I call? How can I get help? As I'm chasing her out of the Chinatown, because I'm not going to let this baby get harmed. In my mind, I think I'm doing something, and I'm going over there into the streets of the homeless, and I have a picture of my daughter, and I'm saying, do you know? Oh yeah, that's Alyssa. I said, she's pregnant. Please tell her to go home. Please tell her to go to rehab. If you sell drugs, please don't sell. Oh ma'am, we keep telling her to go home. Ironically, that environment that everybody looks so down on, I have to say, they were very kind people. And I ended up praying with a lot of them. It turned into this ministry. But so anyways, my next option, I call CPS. I call the hotline, because I thought that's who you call if a child is being harmed, whether that child is born or not born. That's child endangerment. So I call the hotline, and the rep gets on, and how can I help you, ma'am? And I said, well, I need help getting a court order to court order my adult child to either jail or a rehab, whatever her choice is, at least for 9 months while she's carrying this child, because he's in danger. And the lady said, oh, the child's not born. I said, no, but she's a heroin addict. And she said, well, there's nothing we can do, ma'am. And I said, why? And she said, because he's not born. And, I have a legal background. I'm a paralegal. Plus, I'm a constitutional person, and I know our rights. And I'm like, but and I did personal injury. If a woman is in a car pregnant, she's driving, and a drunk driver hits her, and it kills her and the unborn fetus, it's 2 counts of manslaughter. I'm sorry, ma'am, we can't help you. And they were rude to me. They hung up. So then I called my local chief of police, and I asked if I could have a meeting with him. And they asked what it was about, and I told them crime in Salinas, drugs in Chinatown, which is that's what that homeless community in my area is called, is Chinatown. And he said sure. And so I interviewed with him for about an hour. I told him I called CPS. Um, he shed a few tears with me, and he said, "Kathy, I see it every day, and unless we see someone under the influence, we can't even stop them. We can't. We have to have probable cause. Does she have a criminal history?" I said, "She's on probation." And he said, "I tell you what I can do. If I see her or any of my guys on their beats, I will share the picture in our morning meetings. And if they happen to see her and she does appear to be under the influence, we'll take her in." And I said, "That would be great." But at least he offered, to do that.
Right. Wow.
So the next thing is I was fortunate to get a local investigative reporter to air our story. And that was in December of 2012. And she took me all the way to our state capitol where I spoke to Representative Monning. I spoke to our local board of supervisors in public forum, begging them to intervene. They told me there was nothing they could do either, even though the board of supervisors, everyone needs to know this. I'm an activist now. So everyone that is dealing with CPS, each has a county, they have a state. Each county has what's called a board of supervisors. Everyone needs to know that board of supervisors approves the budget for CPS in each county. So they have a liability. So I went to speak in public forum.
Now, may I
And
ask real quick, are these the same people that you would put a complaint or a grievance in with as well, or is that two separate um,
you
programs?
you you could put a complaint and or a grievance, and essentially that's what I was trying to do in public forum, because you get 2 minutes to talk in public forum, but yet they work for us.
Right.
So the public gets 2 minutes in comment, okay, and it goes into an archive. In other words, my when I went in there in 2012, it's still on their board of supervisors feed in the archives.
Right.
So, and I went there 2 times and spoke. Um, I also went to our local assemblyman at the time that served this district, and his name was Luis Alejo. He now sits on our board as a board of supervisors. I went to him as an assemblyman, and I begged him and I told him. Now, this is a man that wrote a bill in less than a year to give thousands of illegals a driver's license, but yet he could not help me write a bill or at least legislate something as a temporary order or bill to allow me to get a court order to jail her or rehab her until my grandson was born well. And then she could decide what she wants to do with her life after he's born safely. He told me he'd call me back. He never did. I've had an interview with Jimmy Panetta, who is our federal senator in California. I've had an interview with Ana Caballero, who is our state rep in California. I had 10 families go with me and speak before Panetta with all their stories. He said, "This is a state problem." I said, "No, sir, Mr. Panetta. This is a federal problem. It's both. The state has been corrupted from federal funds called ASFA that comes from Social Security, where I used to work, that I never even knew about. It is on their website under policies and procedures, Title I, or it's Title 4 funding, E and D. Anyone could go to Social Security and go in their search engine and type Title 4, and you will see all these grants that go to the states. The other thing that should make every American mad about that is our money. That is our retirement fund that they're using essentially to kidnap children. And when I say kidnap children, what changed the whole dynamics of the foster system was when Bill Clinton put in ASFA in 1997, essentially incentivizing CPS to place children in foster care rather than kinship bio family because they get more federal fund when they're in a foster placement. So they essentially incentivize the system to be corrupted.
Yes, they're 100% right, and it's actually appalling because you would think they would want to keep the children, connected with some type of relative or kinship. And usually 99.9% of the children that are put in foster care are either, I was just having this conversation with another young lady the other day, they're put either in the system itself or, they grow into this, you know, type of person that either relies on drugs or winds up criminally or in jail. And then again, who's the blame? Who do we pin the blame on? you know no, don't blame it on the judge or the person that was supposed to be there to protect these children at that time. Let's go blame the child that's traumatized. Let's blame the child that is being misunderstood. And you're right. These programs are out here and they're being funded and they're fraudulently, because that's basically what they're doing. They're fraudulently taking this money, and
Amen.
they're using it for their own gain. And us as families and parents are the ones that are losing out. Our children are losing out, and it's destroying the mere fact of, family, period. So something definitely has to be done. And I hear a lot of people losing hope. I really do, because
Yes.
they have went to your extent, and they have done exactly just what you have done. Have tried to take it to Supreme Court, tried to pass laws and contacting legislators or Congress or Assembly or what have you. And it seems as if a lot of these parents are getting to the point to where, yes, we're standing up, but they're saying, what's the point? What's the point? Um, I'd like to interject real quick on one something, just to prove a point too. Is the Judicial Committee is there to oversee judges, and in my situation, I have contacted them twice and just got another letter yesterday stating that they were denying my request. Now, that goes again with the funding. Well, what is the purpose of your program then if you're not going to take that funding that is exhausted to you and use it in the proper manner, and enforce the rules that are supposed to be upholded by these people that are taking these oaths? What is your point? Um, so yes, you are 100% right. It works both ways, whether you're the parent or the grandparent and you're just like at an awe of, okay, what else do you do now? Are you supposed to just give up and say, that's it? Let
Well,
us just
you make
retain.
a good point there because I don't got no leg in this fight. My grandson's adopted. I know where he is because I'm a private investigator too. I mean, that's part of process serving, because I wasn't just a paper pusher. I went and I looked at houses that were going to get repossessed. I went and looked at cars that were going to get repossessed. So I had to do investigative type stuff. And I know where my grandson's at. He's only 40 minutes away from me with an extremely wealthy family. He's in a private school. Sammy Hagar's kids went to the school. The man was 67 at the time. The woman was 47 at the time. I was 47 at the time. So what was going on, because he had to stay a month in intensive care. He was born highly addictive January 3rd, 2012. I have severe PTSD. So some of this I might get a little shook up on. I have a lot of anger.
It's very
Um,
understandable. Take your time. We're here to listen.
it destroyed my life because, I had a great career. Um, but I worked for the National 800 number. I was an operator and I set up claims for mentally ill people or people that their child just committed suicide and they left 4 kids behind. And or they were just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So I had to be an even kill emotional person. And when he was born, that shook me up. This infant um, had seizures. He was withdrawing from heroin. And this is my grandson. And so I'm going and I'm seeing him because it was a state hospital in my county, Natividad, and it was 5 minutes away from my work and 5 minutes away from my home. And I was a seasoned employee, 12 years seniority. I could do what was called flex shifts, where I could go in as early as 6:30 in the morning and take like a 2 hour lunch, and then I would just have to stay later in the evening, which worked out great. But my main goal was to bond with him, because my daughter and I call him my son-in-law. They weren't married, but to me, he's my son-in-law. And they had already told the hospital social worker. Now, this social worker was not involved with CPS. Hospitals also have their own social workers for crises, etc.
They're mandated reporters
Yeah,
as well,
they are
correct?
mandated reporters as well. So, the very first day of his birth, I asked to have a private meeting, even before even seeing my daughter or any of that, to explain the whole situation, and let her know up front that I was a maternal grandmother and I was there to raise him. So she
Now,
knew that.
now I know you were aware of what happened because you had already mentioned that earlier as far as her addiction, but I can't even imagine emotionally when he actually came out and you were to see this baby, flesh and blood. I can't even imagine emotionally, what roller coaster you had to have been on to witness this innocent child and already know that, listen, I'm not prepared. Who would be prepared in a situation like this? It had to have
And
been
my own
just,
daughter, my own daughter did it.
I
You
can't
know.
even imagine it. I'm so sorry for those feelings. I really
Thank
am.
you. Thank you. But so, going forward, my daughter finally gets into an inpatient rehab, and they're supposed to take, his name is Angel, and they were supposed to, social services, CPS, was supposed to be taking him to see her regularly, like 2 3 times a week, and eventually was supposed to allow him to stay there with her, because it was the type of facility that was 24/7 staffed, and they could watch and be present and supervise, and that wasn't happening. And regardless of the situation, my daughter still had rights, and I knew rights. And so, that he's in the hospital for a month and a half, and they're weaning him off with morphine. And again, my daughter's in an inpatient rehab. She really doesn't get to come into the hospital that much, because they have to stay there. They can't leave the property. And so I'm the one nurturing him, bonding. I'm prepared to raise him still, even if my daughter went to rehab. The plan was still for me to raise him until she successfully graduated a rehab and had at least a year sobriety under her belt, a home, all of that. Um, so so fast forward, I told the hospital social worker, they surrendered him to me. Um, and looking back, we should have had it in writing, whatever. So as I'm watching my grandson, and I can see within my own spirit and my own discernment that he's getting better. And I started looking at the chart, and I could tell that the dose of the morphine was getting lower and lower and lower. And um,
That had to be uplifting within itself right there.
and just the fact that he wasn't having the tremors, because I would have to hold his feet, and just constant. And I would always do this thing. I'd put him up to my ear, or his ear up to my nose and my mouth, and I would breathe. And he would
Uh-huh.
he loved it, right?
He
It
melted,
was
right?
Yeah, it was just part. It's weird, but it was part of our bonding. And so fast forward to the worst day of my life. No, not the worst day of my life. The day before the worst day of, or it was like 5 days before. we get told by the nursing staff that CPS is coming to the hospital to do what's called a team decision making meeting. And I said, "Oh, what is that?" And the nurse explained, "Well, that's where they decide whether or not they're going to remove the child and put him in state jurisdiction." I go, "Oh,
Now, I'm sorry, real quick. Was he already still at the hospital when they were making this decision? And they didn't offer any suggestion for you to take part in any type of care for this
oh, you
child at the
got to
time?
hear it. You got to hear it." So I'm like, "Okay." And they had already notified my daughter at the program. So the van brought my daughter in. And so the NIC unit is like right here, and it's secure. He had an ankle bracelet. If he was to ever taken out those two doors, the whole alarm system would have went off in the hospital. Okay, so he was already being protected. Okay,
Right.
um, so okay, this meeting is at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we all go into the room, or I should say, my daughter and I walked in there, and we walk into approximately 10 people, four of which we knew. No, three of which we knew. One was Linda Castillo, the social worker for my daughter, and the one doctor and one nurse that CPS chose. I'd only dealt with them like one time to be in that meeting to discuss Angel's disabilities and where he was at and where they were trying to get him, etc. And then the 9 or 8 other people were program staff from CPS. In other words, resources, the programs that they would have offered had they took jurisdiction of my grandson. So they
Right.
were there to explain how their programs operate, etc. And so then everyone introduces themselves, and then we go into a live meeting. And then CPS has a white poster board on a flip chart, like an artist has the stand that you put your artwork on. Um, and then all this stuff is being written, and I'm reading it, and just basically listing all the names that are in the meeting, and then starts to list concern or pros and cons. And I'm looking at it, and some of the pros were not true as far as I could attest to. And I didn't harm this child. I and that was my daughter. But I would not argue anything that I knew to be true. But I would argue anything I knew to not be true.
Of course.
And so some of the statements or things that were written there I knew were not true, but I didn't say anything. So I just observed, and my daughter's sitting to the left of me. I'm here. Now, the head crisis worker, Pat Mannion, is directly in front of us, and then Linda Castillo, the social worker, is to the right of her. And so Linda Castillo, or Pat Mannion, starts the meeting, introduces, and says, we're here to make a decision, and goes into talking and laying out some of what she states to be allegations against my daughter, which were she's non-compliant. She was still using drugs. She wasn't going to meetings, which was all untrue. She was in a verifiable rehabilitation center. Her counselors spoke to them. So I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry. You're going to need to retract that statement. She's in an inpatient rehab." Pat Mannion says to me, "Miss Rosas," because that was my name at the time, "if you do not be quiet, I'm going to make you leave the room." So it already got contentious, right? And I kind of sat back. I took a deep breath. I'm a federal employee. They're state employees. We we hold the highest respect for these people. And that's how I was taught in my job. And no, it was as if I was say as if I
A
was the
criminal.
as if I abused him too.
Right.
And I said, ma'am, you have no idea the road I've traveled to save this child. Ma'am, if you don't be quiet, we're going to make you leave the room. I said, ma'am, if you continue to speak that way to me, I'm going to file a lawsuit against you. You cannot lie to a judge. The meeting continued. So they said thank you and we'll be in touch with you. And it ended. And my daughter had spent a few minutes with Angel, and then they took her back to Seaside to the recovery center. And I stayed with him because I was always with him. Anytime I was not working, I was with my grandson. And so 10 days later, I get a letter in the mail, and I can share that with you, um,
Sure.
stating that they denied me placement because I threatened a social worker and I was not level headed.
And the threat that they're speaking about is because you
I
had
would sue them.
confronted them?
I would sue them.
Oh,
But
okay.
imagine, because that's a threat, but imagine writing that to the judge without saying she threatened to sue us. The judge can make any assumption that I maybe threatened him physically. So that's
Right.
how they do this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So I immediately sent a letter rebutting that. I didn't threaten, I said I would sue the agency for lying to the court. Wasn't going to have it. Wasn't going to have it. I wrote to the director. Now, I side with my workers, and they denied you. You can appeal it. You can request an administrative hearing. Um, well, guess what? When you request an administrative hearing, you're just going to the higher up of CPS. So it's not a private. When you go to an administrative hearing, it's not a private entity that can be non-biased. No, they're colluding. They're all in together colluding.
So it seems as if it doesn't matter how low or high your income is, who you know, or what job description you have. It can happen to anybody, clearly.
Amen. Mhm.
And when you speak up, even though not that we need a constitutional right to tell us that we have freedom of speech, because morally and by free will given to us by God, we are allowed to speak the way we want
Moreover,
to. Right.
moreover, the right to raise our children.
Exactly, exactly. And it seems as if they become very offended, as if it's personally attacking them somehow, and affecting their lifestyle or their job, when you actually speak up for yourself and for what's right. I mean, this is just a, I can't even think of the proper words anymore
It's a
because
huge power trip.
it
And
is,
and
yeah.
and like I said, I'm in a whole different stage. I'm an activist. I'm retired with severe PTSD. Um, it ruined my career. It broke my heart. I spent a year in major depression. I couldn't even get out of bed. I resigned in September of 2012 from my great. I mean, I could still be there making twice as much money, but I couldn't do that work anymore. So I laid around in bed for a year in a very depressive state. And I do serve God. And I was really mad at God because I lacked understanding, because I knew He knew my heart. I knew He sees everything we do when nobody else does. I
Yeah.
knew He followed me through this journey. I knew He was there, but I was really mad at Him. So for this year, I would pray, because I was praying to get out of the depression. I was praying to be um, usable and stop this corruption. And finally, after a year of crying and telling them, why did you do this? Why did this have to happen to my grandson? And finally, out of the blue, this audible, soft, comforting voice said, get up, tell the world. This is happening all over the world. I'm sorry I had to break your heart, but I want you to tell the world. So I said, okay. And I got up, and I'm an admin in over 50 groups for CPS corruption. I'm a co-founder of Invisible Rights. Um, I am a administrator or admin for a coalition that we have over 1,000 members in. That's international. We do Zoom meetings every night. The good thing is that finally people are starting to get pissed off enough that we're doing these big things to unite. Because I mean, if you look at the movement of Black Lives Matter, even though I have zero respect for that because they're a violent group, they're but they had this power to be so visual and recognized, and we know that they were funded by Soros. Unfortunately, our movement, we don't have no billionaire to fund us. In fact, we're finding those billionaires are using a lot of these children that are coming and from the foster system, or they're running away and they're going non-reported. They're ended up being trafficked. So when this Epstein story broke, where do people think he was getting all his kids? It wasn't just from overseas. These kids that run away and a pimp or someone finds them, they're trafficked. This is a bigger deal than any of us really know. And I'm going to tell you what my bottom line is that I think needs to happen, and it's called a federal RICO. What they are doing is racketeering. And if you look up the definition of RICO, racketeering, it's kidnapping and money. So I was wrongfully denied my grandson. They violated their own policy and procedure, which I can quote. It says, we must consider a relative. We must, CPS, we must look at any potential relative to take this child on the maternal and the paternal side. They did none of that. Okay. Then it said to grant a relative, they will do a background check and a home study. They did none of that for me. They diagnosed me as not being level-headed when they don't even have a degree in mental health.
They based their decision basically, like I said before, because you happened to stand up for what was right, and they took
And
offense
she
to that.
was my daughter. She was a heroin addict. So I must have been the one that caused that. In other words, the apple don't fall far from the tree, right? But our case goes bigger. They did not even do the background check. They did not even do a home study. I was living in a 3,000 square foot home on 4 acres where I had my grandson's nursery set up in 101 Dalmatians, all ready for him to come home.
Uh,
And, so they deny me on hearsay. So one of the other things that I'm working for is we want the CPS workers to wear body cams. They've made our police do it. Well, we want the CPS workers, all of them, to have to be wearing one at any given time. Let's hold them
100%.
let's hold them accountable, because essentially
100%.
what they are doing and what they are getting away with is they are lying under oath.
Yep,
They are
we
committing fraud upon the court.
they are, exactly. And if they want to be considered a government official, they should be treated as a government official. You're invading somebody's home when you're walking into there. And when you're invading their home, you are capable of any type of action without being recorded or video recorded. And I know in some states, like in my state, as long as we let them know, hey, we're recording you, although they might not like it. Well, I don't like you walking into my home, but guess what? I'm
Amen.
still going to record what you're doing.
Yeah.
But in some states, they don't allow that.
Right.
So to alleviate from that flaw in the system, it would be best for, like what you're saying, they need cameras. They need to
Hmm.
be, we, the public, as
They
well as,
need cameras, and we need Miranda rights. Okay.
yes, yes,
Everyone needs to
100%.
realize, and this gets me fired up. Okay. A murderer has more rights than a parent being accused of child abuse, or
Or
a
what about
grandmother.
Or
or
what
a
about
grandmother. In other words,
exactly?
they should not have been able to do that TDM meeting without us having our attorneys present because we're supposed to
Exactly.
be innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
CPS has all the power. They don't got to read you Miranda rights. They don't have to allow you to have an attorney. They are supposed to have a warrant before they come into your home, but they are violating that too. If you look into an attorney, a civil rights trial attorney down in San Diego, California, Sean McMillan, I worked a lot with him because I represented myself in my appeals for my grandson because I could find no attorney that would help a grandparent because in CPS cases, grandparents have no rights. In family law, I would have had a right. So that's another irony. So I had no rights, so I could find no attorney to help me. Thank God I had a paralegal career and I did a little family law. It's totally different from juvenile dependency, but I learned real quick. And I was like, I'm not giving up. So I mean, this is before I went through that year of depression. I was in the fight for my life, and I got my way because my argument at the very beginning was they didn't even need to take jurisdiction. One, he was watched 24/7 with an ankle bracelet on. No one could have took him out of that hospital.
He
He
was already
was
part of
not
the system.
he was not in imminent danger. Those are the only two grounds they can take a child on. Well, my grandson was 24/7 watched. All the other nurses and doctors loved me except the two that were in their meeting. Every other one loved me, interacted with me, helped me, prayed with me, at least 10 to 15 of them. So, yeah, Miranda rights, because we should be able to be quiet and have an attorney present so that they cannot slander and submit hearsay stuff against us that we have no remedy to argue, even if it's hearsay. It's supposed to be hearsay, it's supposed to be stricken and thrown out. Nope.
Right.
The
Right.
judges are in on it. So but that's my position. First of all, is one, they never should have took him. They never should have took jurisdiction. I had the means to go to the court when he was released and get legal guardianship. Or if they wanted to be a legit and stand up agency that really helped families, they would have said, Miss Rosas, we're going to help you go get guardianship. That would have been re- that would have been good.
Right.
That would have been helpful. But no, they wanted that infant baby. And I'm going to
But
tell
see,
you another thing. The the minute that they got involved, there was a woman coming in whenever I wasn't there, so it was mostly overnight. And this is the woman they placed him with. They already had in their mind a family for this infant boy. Beautiful Mexican American.
without considering any other options for this child at that time.
I believe.
Mind you, that you had already warned them of her condition while she was pregnant with this child. So
Amen.
that alone shows that you were already concerned about the well-being of this child. Although they technically, on their
Right.
part, was saying they couldn't do anything. You're like,
Right.
wait a minute here. There's a
Right.
problem. Let's
Yep.
fix
And
this
and I
before this child is
even
born.
I even had the investigative reporter. It aired on live TV in I think February of 2012, where I she did a full on interview of my home, his nursery, and a mugshot of my daughter begging for community outcry because she put in there. Uh, Miss Rosas has been to the Capitol. She's been to the Board of Supervisors. She's been to Assemblyman Alejo, Assemblyman Monning. She's written to Sam Parr. She's written, all this stuff was presented on this TV interview. I still have that disc. I still have the newspaper article where it says, my very first statement on the article says, put my daughter in jail now.
And I fully agree because I believe that if a grown adult is unwilling to take responsibility and capable of providing for themselves, the next person reasonably you would think would be that person's parent or another responsible adult. And if that is the excuse me, if that is the alternative route that you had to take to seek some type of help, not only for herself prior to her being pregnant, so be it. So be
Amen.
it. Why?
I was trying
I
to
don't see why
protect.
that's a
I
problem.
was trying to protect both of them, And there's this act out of Florida. It's called the Marchman Act, and this black pastor had authored it because he helped a lot of the homeless community, and he was finding himself unable to help them a lot because of the Constitution, their constitutional rights. So they wrote this act called the Marchman Act, where it enabled loved ones to do what I was trying to do. So I even brought that in when I took it to Sacramento, and I showed it to Mr. Monning, the whole thing that this pastor had written up, and it passed, and it was successful. And I said, why can't we do this in Monterey County right now? Oh, I'm so busy. It would take years. I mean, I just kept getting
What a
door shut
response. Holy crap.
after door shut after door shut after door shut. And oh my God. So, so the TDM happens. They deny me placement. They take jurisdiction. I go to the jurisdiction hearing. The bailiff tells me, who are you? And I said, I'm the maternal grandmother for this juvenile. I have an interest in raising him. You're not allowed in the court, ma'am. You're not a party to the case. And I said, what do you mean? I'm the maternal grandmother. Ma'am, you are not a party to the case. If you step one step further, I will arrest you.
Oh my
Looking back,
goodness.
I wish I would have went. But because I am a law-abiding citizen, I said, okay, and I left.
Obey the laws of the land.
Yeah, and then I'm like at that point I'm even getting more frightened and nervous, and like they're violating our rights. I mean, I'm
Got you
discerning.
backed in a corner at this time.
Yeah, and I'm like something is really really evil. Something's not right. And then I started googling cuz one of my gifts in my career is as a paralegal is analyst and research. I'm very good at that.
Gotta teach yourself sometime.
And so when that clicked in my head, something is really evil with this agency. I started googling CPS corruption. That's all I did. CPS corruption. I found it was happening in the
Please.
UK, in
Oh yeah.
Australia. I started
Yep.
working with an advocate out of
Canada too.
out of Canada, Velvet Martin. Um, her daughter died in CPS care, and she created a foundation. That woman told, I mean, we were on phone calls. She said, Kathy, do this, do that. That's the one that said, start raising hell. And so then that's when I started going back to the Board of Supervisors again, saying, now they want to take them. I want you to be with me at that hearing. The director met me outside of the door. You have to write a complaint, ma'am. I said, I've already written complaints. Well, you have to let the judge decide, ma'am. And I'm getting more and more frustrated and more angry, but I have to keep my head, because I'm fighting for this boy. And so I do more research. And a friend, he's now my friend, that trial attorney down in San Diego, I started private messaging him. What can I do? What can I do? He said, file this form. So I filed this form, and that got me in to the Supreme Court or the Superior Court, which is a lower court.
Is that the
And
Court of Appeals? Is that the same
no,
thing or no?
this
Oh,
is
okay.
where they hear juvenile cases. In other words, it's called the lower court,
Okay.
county court,
Okay.
Superior Court. So I filed this form, which is a form. It's called to get me in, and be considered as a relative placement, standing, to get legal standing. So I submitted it, and it granted a hearing where I was able to go in before the judge and talk. And so I go to this hearing, and the judge, Susan Daphne, says, "Good morning, everyone." Makes us swear in and calls me to the bench and I swears me in and says, "So, Miss Rosas, I understand that you want to raise your grandson, and the agency has denied you." And I said, "Your Honor, that's correct. And that's why I'm here, because I wanted to let you know they falsified information to you, Your Honor. I threatened to sue them." And then I went into telling her everything I had done to try to prevent him being born sick.
Now, were they
And
present at this hearing?
CPS?
Yes.
Yes. County
So,
council,
okay.
because county council reps them, right? And so, the judge is asking me these questions. And then when I said they falsified information to you, Your Honor, then county council cracks off because, that's who represents CPS. "Oh, I object. That is not a true statement." And then because I'm a paralegal, but I'd never been in a court action where I was representing myself or anyone for that matter,
Right.
And so I started talking to county council. I said, "You're a liar. Your agency's a liar, and you're a liar." I said, your license should be pulled." I said, "I never threatened. I threatened to sue." I said, "Because they were saying things that were not true." I said, "Do you even know what I've been through to protect my grandson?" And then county council gets a little softer and she says, "I understand, ma'am. But
No, you
this,"
don't understand.
yeah, you feel like telling them, you know what, but I couldn't, I wasn't going to do that
Right.
either, to give them what they were saying about me to begin with. And so, she goes to continue speaking. And then I said to the judge, I said, "Your Honor," I said, "I really would like a trial because none of this is true. And I fought the streets of hell to save my grandson and my daughter." And I said, I work for Social Security. I have no criminal record. They looked at none of that. I said, "I want a trial. I want to be able to call witnesses, all the doctors and nurses that I interacted with, that when they came and took him from the hospital at a month and a half old, would have testified how good I was to my grandson and with my grandson, because they were hugging me and crying with me, saying, 'What's going on? Where is he going?' And I said, 'Obviously, they're taking him.'" And then that's when I had to try to rush into the jurisdiction hearing, and they wouldn't let me in. So, anyways, when I finally got to the judge, she says, "Miss Rosas, I feel really sad for you." She says, "I'm a grandmother too. I know what you must be going through, but I have to side with the agency." And that just hit me like a
Unreal.
ton of bricks, and my adrenaline just pumped. And I said, "And I appeal you too." And I'm walking. This time I'm out of it. I'm like, "I appeal this entire corruption, and I want it on record. I'm appealing this."
And her sorry means nothing, even though
No,
she's tried to give you that sympathetic emotion of
she did not.
understanding. It
She
means nothing.
violated our rights too, because due process says she should have gave me a
Yep.
hearing.
Yep. Yep.
So, anyways, I get that on record, so it would be on the transcripts. And then, so the next thing is it goes to the appellate. That's, you always have the right to appeal it to the next level, and then the next, and then federal, right? So
That's
I
right.
appealed it on my own to the appellate. My daughter's appellate attorney felt my case was so strong, she joined me. So I wrote 20, 30-page brief with the help from Sean McMillan, Nicole Williams, she's an appellate attorney. I found all these people through Facebook. And if you Google CPS California $1 million lawsuits. You'll see Sean McMillan's all the cases that he's won,
Wow.
and they're being settled out of court. So there's no published opinion, so it stays off the radar. Okay,
Wow.
this, like I said, if you want to, if anyone really wants to get to the core issue, it's RICO racketeering, and even attorneys will argue with me about that. But from my research, if we could find a prosecutor that would be willing to do it, we could pull off a national RICO and stop this agency in their tracks.
That's the problem, though, is a
They're
lot of these.
embedded.
Yes, and a lot of them are some are very intimidated as well, and all they're worried about is their future cases. All they're worried about is that paycheck that's going to feed their family. They don't care about us. They don't care about our feelings. They don't care about our kids. All it is
Amen.
money, money, money. I literally had one CPS worker come into my house one day and tell me she just took a whole family of children away because of domestic violence situation. Not drugs, and I'm not saying domestic violence is okay, okay, but that's a whole nother story. But to take 4 to 5 children away, that's $4,000 a piece right there. Four, and that's not even a lot of freaking money, okay?
No.
I don't really have much money myself, but 4,000 even per kid is still not a lot of money for you to feel content with your life that you did some type of justice and you're ripping a whole family away from each other. You're traumatizing a child and emotionally distraught. I mean, I'm just, oh my God. It angers the hell out of me. And, as much as we fight and as much as we stand up for it, my anger will never go away. My anger will never go. And until something's done, and until these people that claim that they're going to help actually they do something, then maybe I might be a little content with that. But other than that, we got every freaking right. We got every right.
Yeah, then you might have the ability to try to heal because my post traumatic stress syndrome, I have severe rage. And I mean, there were times when I could tell my grandson was getting better, that this little voice in my head said, "Just slip off that bracelet when you're giving him a bath and walk out." But
I
because
think
I,
that's
but because I'm so level-headed and such a law-abiding citizen, I said that would be wrong. But you know what, girl? Looking back, I wished I'd done it.
but you
Because
know
I
what?
would have
It's
went on the run, and then I would have got national media attention.
right. Yep.
I'm not saying I condone that,
Right, right, right.
but
Not at all. Right.
knowing what I know now, it would have advanced, and I probably would have got the support I needed because then everyone would have been watching. Because that's the one thing they do this in secrecy.
The support of criminals is key for some reason in these situations. It seems as if the criminals get the red carpet rolled out for them.
Yep.
And again, and I've said this many times before, the protective parent are the ones that you get pushed in the corner and silenced. And you
Yeah,
have
well,
every right to feel that. Those are normal feelings. It's not that you're crazy that you would feel that because any parent that wants to protect their child is going to say, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? What should I
well,
do next?"
and that, because like I said, I do. I'm an activist, so I'm almost on Zoom calls every night, or I'm helping a family file a motion, or you know uh, an appeal brief, or whatever. It's a little hard because I'm in California and laws are different in every state, but they're somewhat similar, especially when it comes to CPS, because you have what's called a policy and procedure manual that
Right.
anyone can download online. And in California, we have what are called WIC codes, and they're supposed to be mandated by those WIC codes. They don't even follow those, you know. And so what you said uh, rings true in my head about the ones that actually need to be having the children removed aren't. And this brings up another case that I helped shed light to here in Monterey County. So I took our appeal to the appellate level. I held up the adoption for 3 years. So Angel was removed and put in that family's home at a month and a half old. But because I had it on appeal, CPS had to allow me 1 hour visit once a month at the CPS headquarters in a 4 by 10 room with 2 cameras and a mic. I never
One
abused
hour
this 1 hour a
once a
month,
month.
once a month. So,
What a great bonding experience. Jesus.
granted, he's still an infant, but when he was in from birth to the month and a half old, he was in my arms every day, and he was getting that in his
Right.
ear, right? And so because I got it to the appellate appeal, they had to by law allow me to have visits, right? So it was only once a month for 1 hour, and everything was filmed and audio recorded, and I mean this baby was just like he knew me, right? And I would cry after every visit because I didn't want to let him go.
Of
And
course.
some of the workers would say, he he won't remember you. He like they thought they were comforting me.
Oh my God.
He won't remember you. It'll be. I'm like,
What an awful, awful thing to say to somebody.
and just
Yeah, that's your blood. That's your
every
blood. You've already
time
established.
I had to walk out of there and sit in my car and just grieve for 20 to 30 minutes before I could drive off. And I'd so hopefully wait for my next month. And so fast forward, I appealed for 3 years. So from infancy, I got to see my grandson grow to walk by my 1 hour visits once a month.
They
By the
never they
time, by
never
the
allowed
time,
you.
by the time he could walk, he would run to me. He knew me, still at 3 years old, only getting 1 hour a month.
They
He
never
knew.
gave you more time for this child throughout this 3 years?
No, and they the adoption. So I lost at the appellate level, and he was adopted out close. Now it gets even more tricky. There's so much to the story. I mean, these calls could take hours. Um, my son-in-law, his mother was a heroin addict his entire life. He was molested and raped in the foster system his
Oh
entire
my
life.
God.
His entire life. So I have very deep emotions for Ricardo, Angel's father, because
Right.
he had a bad life.
And it affected him
Yeah.
greatly.
And the agency, was going to allow his mother, who just got out of Chowchilla Women's State Prison, serving a 10-year sentence, they were going to allow her to have an open adoption with my grandson.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. And I have it in the court papers.
So
All my
this woman
stuff
is a
is in court
criminal.
papers.
This woman is a criminal, literally about ready to step her first foot out
A drug
into the
addict
real
her
world.
entire life. All her children were molested in foster care by her brothers. I still
Oh,
have the court papers that say, and we'll allow Maria Medina to have an open
on what
adoption.
grounds though?
In
I'm
other
not
words,
understanding.
she would. In other words, the foster parents would have adopted him, and she could have went and visited him anytime she wanted. But me, it was closed.
What's the difference between? I'm trying to kind of
They
understand
never did
maybe.
a background check on her either. So, in other words, they never did a background check on me or this other woman. Had they done that, they would have said, oh, we got this backwards. This lady has a career. She's never, ever even got a speeding ticket. She's never been in jail. No domestic violence. And then this one, who's been in and out of prison her entire life.
I'm kind of curious to wonder if they even did a background check on the foster parents prior to this child's adoption and placement.
I doubt it. And
I mean, I
so,
wouldn't be surprised if they're not going to do it with you and the other grandparent.
well, allegedly these people came out of the kinship center. So like I said, what people that have never been involved in this industry or been victimized by them, if they knew, we we would stop this because, like I said, every year seniors are threatened that they're going to lose their social security benefits because it's running out. If all of them knew that the Social Security Administration Trust Fund is using it to to fund
Fun.
foster care,
Right.
they would be so outraged, right? So how do we inform the masses of that? That's what I try to do.
Because it's like they're unknowingly condoning this. That's pretty much
Exactly.
what's happened.
So one of my goals in my, I call it my calling now. This is my calling. When I'm on these calls or I'm out in the public and someone just walks up, I start talking to them about it because I want to educate the uneducated. Because the more we inform the uninformed, we're going to have a movement.
Yep. Yep.
But
This is
fast forward 2021, I can tell you, Tina, I believe we're about ready to break the gate open, and that
we are.
God is moving that rock.
We have to keep
Because
speaking it
if
into
you recently,
existence.
exactly,
Yep.
if you recently heard, and again, lamestream media, because we don't have any good news except Project Veritas.
Yep.
That's who I work with, O'Keefe, and everyone should be sending him. Um, it's called Project Veritas /tips. Everyone that has a CPS case should be sending him tips because he's the insider and he's causing problems. Okay. So I don't know if you heard about the big case out of St. Louis, Missouri, where 31 judges recused themselves.
No, the latest that I've heard of St. Louis was the judges from all over coming and meeting.
That
That
was
was
they just had a convention and we had a bunch of people there. We even
that's
had
kind of.
people. We got people that were on the inside listening to the conference.
I would have loved to attend. Oh my God! Because when I
I
first
wanted
heard
to
about
too.
this, when I first heard about this, I go, the only thing that explains this is evil and cult.
Amen.
Okay. Because now with doctors, I'll give an example. With doctors, you can see something like that because you know they got to go through the FDA, they got to approve certain foods, maybe allergy drugs per person medically. When you're dealing with judges from all parts and walks of different parts of the world, it doesn't even make any sense because our laws, state by state, are totally different. So, what is the possible and legitimate reason that you guys are coming from the ends of the earth to have this meeting for what? And then we, the parents that you've already obstructed and violated, are not even involved? We're not invited? I would have loved, I was hoping to see some type of protests or live feeds from Facebook. And I didn't get to have the advantage of seeing any of that. So it was kind of a little disappointing. But if you do at any time or chance, have I would love to look at it. I would love to see any of that pertaining to that situation. And what the conclusion of maybe how the parents handled this situation that day. It would be, kind of amazing actually to see.
For my knowledge, because I work with numerous attorneys, and one is very, very big in our movement. She founded Family Forward Project out of Tennessee, Connie Reguly. And she's actually they're trying to disbar her.
That's, you know what? I just mentioned her name the other day with Laura Thompson on the podcast. Yes, she was there with Laura. I seen them
Yes,
briefly on their podcast. Yeah, she's wonderful. Actually, I would love to meet her. She's
yes.
absolutely wonderful.
She's an amazing attorney. And her story, I mean, prior to being involved in CPS cases, she was a prosecutor. She prosecuted CPS cases. In other words, kids that were broken arms and broken legs and broken femurs, real abuse. That's what she did prior. Now she helps CPS families, and one woman, CPS was trying to take her daughter, and she happened to be friends with Connie, and Connie said, come to my home and
Right.
stay, and you'll be safe." So now they're going after Connie for custodial interference.
Wow. Unreal.
But she's going to win it. She's going to win, but we need to support her. We need to pray for her. We need to court watch for her. I believe it's coming up. Again, her foundation is a Family Forward Project. She has one in every state. And then we have a new coalition that's called Family Court Anti-Corruption Coalition. We are 1,000 members strong. We are international. Um, we've got attorneys, paralegals, private investigators. Um, all these are people. In other words, all the people in this coalition have been victimized, even these attorneys.
Is this the FACC, I think it is?
FCACC,
Okay,
yes.
so actually I'm thankful for that you actually brought that up
Join
because
us.
I am actually, but I'm still kind of getting the gist. There's a lot of emails that roll in a lot. I did post my
You can unsubscribe because that's one thing we don't want you guys to get bothered. But what we
Okay.
do when we add you is we put you in everything that we think is relevant to what you put on your intake. And you
Okay.
will be bombarded with posts, but you can click unsubscribe,
So
and
my
then
problem, go ahead, sorry.
you can go into Basecamp, and
Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
you can just look at your pings, or you can ping somebody like my because I have an alias, because we're taking down a very evil machine.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm gonna tell you that so you know who to communicate with there.
You can
And
private message it to me if you want. I
okay, I'll
mean, so
do
you're
that
not
later.
putting it right here on the
Yeah,
podcast because then it would
because
be.
I would like you to interact with me, because I want you to get more involved in there, because our motto is we're stronger together. In other words, we
Yes,
want
I
to
see that a lot.
collaborate.
Yep.
We
Yep.
want to collaborate with all these people, because the more we come together,
Hmm.
instead of wanting a title or I'm the hero that took down CPS, if everybody
We're all
realizes
fighting for the same thing.
Nancy Schaefer was exposing this 20 years ago
Yep.
and she was murdered,
Yep.
okay?
Her and her husband.
Sandra Collins, another attorney, or excuse me, person running for government
Yep.
out of Arkansas, was murdered. She
Yep.
was exposing it. So guess what, CPS?
We're coming.
We're coming, and you're not going to shut us up, because God is
Amen to
using
that.
us. We're his
Amen to
vessels.
that.
So this coalition started in August of last year. We're already at 1,000 plus. We
Hmm.
hold Zoom meetings every night. On Thursdays, we have a Zoom meeting that has a 30-year legal expert. He will help give legal advice on that call. Everybody is given the opportunity to ask a legal question or say what their situation is, and for
Right.
guidance. That's every Thursday night. We do court watching. So, because of the pandemic, many of these courts were doing hearings by Zoom.
Right.
That has worked out to our benefit, because we have one case where the gentleman is being alienated from his son and daughter, and the other parent is saying that he's abusive. He has proven that he's not abusive. His 16-year-old son wants to testify with the judge. The judge won't let the 16-year-old son testify, which is their legal right.
Tampering with evidence, isn't it?
Exactly. Won't allow it in an
Whoa.
evidentiary hearing. Blocked
Whoa.
him. Blocked him.
Wow.
We got that judge removed. So what our coalition does is we write letters of we court watch, and then if we see the judge violating their judicial canons, we as or coalition write letters. All of us that witnessed, and we've had 30 court watchers on these court calls.
I wish
We
you
write
guys were. I knew about you
we
guys when my hearing happened. Jeez.
right, but now if you have other people come to you, we court watch, okay? And that is also supposed to be, courtrooms are supposed to be open to the public.
And with the court watchers, they don't have to present themselves with a name or technically any type of title, just that they're a court watcher, correct?
Typically, what will happen is you get put in a waiting room. I've done probably 50 to 100 of them.
Hmm.
You get put in a waiting room, and then when the case that you're going to watch, or any of the cases start, then the judge pulls you out of the waiting room, and then she will say, or he will say, I notice there's a lot of people on this call that are not parties to the case. Are you witnesses?
Right, right.
And you don't have to answer. And so I never answer because I don't got to answer.
Right.
And then, he or she proceeds and says, well, if you're a witness, you need to get off this call. So then we all stay on with our monitors off, our mics on mute, because you don't want to interfere in any of the proceedings. You're
Right.
just observing. And little do they know, we're observing because we're going to write complaints for our member if we see them violating any of their judicial canons, which
Right.
means being biased on any side, showing favor to any side, and we see it all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing. I think we've been successful in the one man's case where they won't let his 16-year-old son testify under oath. Um, I think he's gotten 3 judges removed,
Wow.
or
Wow.
at least
And
off
he's
his
and his
case.
court is still active as well?
Yes, yes.
Wow, unreal.
He's
Unreal.
and he's in the 400,000s
Wow.
because
So I'm
he's a wealthy man,
right. And
and
it again it
it
goes
wasn't
back to
CPS, it's family court.
yeah,
They're all
again
just as bad.
it doesn't matter how much money or what, education background you have again, but this shows you how deep and dark that this evil beast is, that it can not only just attack low income families or, people in poverty or disabled or what have you. This goes higher, and we as a people have a right to overthrow. We have a right to step up and say, listen, you're not doing proper towards us. You're not looking out for the benefit of us. Now, let's go. We have to take charge. We got to do something.
Right,
So many people are out there. I get it. I get they're protesting, but some of the stuff, it's to me, I feel it's a waste of time when you have situations such as this that are actually affecting families and children that are going to be part of society sooner or later, and grow into society. You want to raise these children up properly so they're not becoming conformed to this type of system and feeling that it's okay, because then ultimately usually what happens is if they become comfortable with this, they too themselves are going to wind up becoming an abuser, a user, and what have you. And that's not what we're looking for, you
right.
know.
Mhm.
I really love the fact we're going to start wrapping it up pretty soon. um, I'm really thankful that you brought up your group, and if you can, when you get a chance, you can actually tag it in this, like maybe in the comment that we shared, because this post has been shared quite a bit. And everyone that's shared this will actually see your information in there. I can also, because I know I've shared your group, your coalition to my group as well. But just to give people a heads up and a preview of what the extent of your coalition is, so they can understand that this. I've been on there. It's actually quite amazing. And what I like about it the most is that it gives you the area that you're in. Like I'm in Erie County, so I can actually look up that county and see if there's any events or anything going on that maybe I want to include myself in. I still haven't got the full gist of the program yet, but hopefully, I'll get it. But other than that, I really really want to thank you so much for everything that you're doing. You're a strong, wonderful, beautiful woman, and I give you so much props and respect. So is there anything else that you want to say before we end the show? I can't hear you. I think you muted your mic on an accident.
Yeah, because I have a fan that this
There you go.
computer, this computer is the one I can't put anything in the chat.
Okay. If you
Uh,
want, when you get a chance, you can actually send it to me privately through Messenger, and then what I can do is I can copy and paste it to this post, just so
okay,
people are aware and notified that have already shared this. Okay?
okay. Um, just one other thing is the base camp. I'd recommend you YouTube how to use base camp. That will help
Okay.
you a lot.
Okay.
And then if you have a minute sometime, I'd do a Zoom with you, and I'd love to show you around
Yeah, I
because
definitely.
I'm
I
an
appreciate it.
admin and I can show you like what it looks like in the bigger picture. Because
Okay.
our goal is to build boots on the ground
Right.
nationally, every state, every county, and then every second Tuesday, I forget exactly what our mission is. In we're going to organize protests. In other words, if it works the way we plan it and God's planning it, is it's our group and the counties are going to grow so big that we're going to have state reps for each
Right.
state. In other words, the root person,
Right.
and then all the branches are going to be the county persons, and we're going to organize in every county across the United States protests on the same day. That's when it's actually going to have an impact.
And I'm definitely up for that. I know I had seen, and I don't know if this is the same protest. I had seen the protest that was supposed to take place, I believe, on the 19th of every month nationally. And I had vouched to represent my city at that time, but then I didn't see any further information, or I didn't see any Facebook Lives about this. So I was a little confused on what was going on, if it was canceled, if it was still going on. Because I actually had a college here that my own daughter goes to and attends, and they were willing to participate in this program with me.
Wow.
I do have an event here in Buffalo that I'm doing actually August 20th for specifically for domestic violence, child abuse victims of family court and CPS corruption, because I really do believe that that is the root of the problem with family court. That is the
Yes.
main problem.
Yes.
And then, of course, it trickles off because, any typical person that's going into family court, it's either for custody or visitations or what have you.
Amen.
But some of these cases are just typical family court cases. They're not
Yes.
dealing or involving abuse or victims.
Hmm.
And when you're dealing with abuse and victims, and these judges with this biased behavior are treating the victims, whether male or female, they are treating the victims as if they're criminals. There's a problem there because, again, and I've said this many times before too, you're not only condoning the abuser, you're subjecting that victim of ongoing abuse or ongoing harassment or what have you. And it's very unfair because it destroys a whole household. It destroys a child. It destroys the point of even trying to be that positive impact for that child that you're raising, because then they're going to turn around and go, what's the point? I'm being
Hmm.
split. Then they got split personalities or something. One
Yeah.
part of their life they're getting the positive part, and then the other part of their life there's so much negative they don't know whether they're coming or going.
Right.
So, and I do believe I actually put it on your site. Again, I'm still learning and I got to find some time because I've been just so busy within the last couple of weeks. But I do want to find some time to chat more, and especially learn your program, because that
Yes.
is one thing that I'm actually having trouble with is I'm finding stories and people from all over, like you said, UK, Canada, Australia, everywhere, even different states. But in my own city, not one person has reached out to me. And I
That's the
know,
same. That's the same here with me. I can
yeah,
I know I could get a bunch, but they're too afraid.
yeah, and I that's what I said I thought it was too, which is even more concerning because, again, it brings me back to the conversation earlier where I was saying these people have become comfortable with this behavior. Not only the victims, but the abusers themselves have become comfortable enough to go, we could do what
Oh,
we want.
when the two social workers were walking out with my grandson, I said, "You better hope to God nothing happens to him while he's in your care. You better
Now,
hope to." I
and the
mean,
good,
oh my God! And they looked back and they were laughing at me.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and they can
But
sleep at night too.
I also wanted to add, since we're wrapping up here, um, the premises on the on our coalition is we are for shared parenting, 100%. We do not say a mother should have custody over a father or a father should have custody over a mother. Um, we are only, and we stand for equal shared parenting.
So I
Okay?
have a quick
That's
question
what we
actually with
stand
that.
about. I want to make that really clear. However, we are not saying that there are not cases where there is major domestic violence and that woman or that man, because women can be abusive too, are in danger of their life. We're not talking about those. But our coalition, what we want is a whole family. In other words, effective co-parenting. If you can't live together and be in love together, you can at least remember you created that child out of love and you guys can co-parent, even if you don't like each other.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we're about. But we also recognize there is domestic violence, and there are drugs, and there are mentally ill, and sometimes we have to have an order and a shared parenting time, or even supervise. But our coalition stands for shared parenting. The other thing I just want to say is this corruption, even in the family courts, what has happened is the child support racket has got involved. And the longer that they draw out these custody cases, the more they are having to
You're
pay
muted
their
out on
attorney.
us, Kathy. You were talking about the child support and then you muted out on us.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Nope, I can't hear you still. Your video's there, but your mic is muted.
Mute. Okay. How can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you, honey.
It might be my
Can you
computer.
try to unmute and then maybe mute again? And then just maybe a couple times to see if that works, or we'll give Kathy a moment to figure out what's going on with her mic because it seemed as if she had something she still wanted to close out with. So, Kathy, take your time. We'll give you a moment to figure it out.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? It's
Huh?
showing my it's showing
You
my
can hear
mic.
her? I can't hear her on my mic.
Yeah, it's showing my mic is
Hello?
working. I can hear you. I
I
can
can't
hear
hear her on
you.
my end.
Maybe your headset. Change
Oh,
your
there you
setting.
go. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. That
That's
was
okay.
my fault, actually. I hit my cord in my computer. I apologize.
It's okay, but so I wanted to wrap up with the fact about the child support.
Okay.
That has also been corrupted because where our rights are also to a fair and speedy trial. Some of these divorce cases are lingering on for 4 to 5 years. Like I said, the one gentleman that's in our group, he's spent over $400,000.
Wow. Jesus.
Okay, so the divorce industry, I don't know if you've heard of divorce court, has also turned into a money racketeering business. We need to take the money out of all of these things. In other words, they should be able to go through a divorce through a mediator and it be settled like that.
Right.
But instead, the court is appointing guardian ad litem's,
And they're just as
a
bad, if not
court
worse.
mediator. It's even the family court system, the probate court system. In our coalition, we have members where their parents were removed from their home and put into a nursing home, and then the nursing home took jurisdiction of the parent, and they drained their $1 million trust accounts.
I've
So it's
just been seeing a lot of stuff on there. Matter of fact, there was a movie called I Care, and
yes, I care a
Kimberly.
lot. Hmm.
Yes, I watched the movie, and then the next day, coincidentally, I happened to see the live podcast with Kimberly down in Washington, where people were telling their story about their CPS along with this elderly kinship guardianship
Yeah,
issue that's going on. And I'm going,
it's called APS, Adult
wow,
Protective Services.
it's just,
We have one gentleman on there. I'll just say Matthew. Um, his mother, very wealthy. He was her power of attorney. He got put in jail trying to go get his mom out of this nursing home because they wanted her to, and she wanted to be at home and die at home. He could not get that guardianship removed. And his mother's dead now. It's a horrible
unreal.
story. Horrible
Unreal.
story. And so the evil behind it is money in every single, in guardianship, probate, CPS, family law court. It's all the money, the money, the money.
So I have a quick question for you, real quick, if you don't mind. Um, with what you're doing is amazing, and I know we're trying to look for different resources for this funding. If, say, for instance, something like this goes down, do you guys have any suggestions so far as what type of program or resources that might be a little bit more beneficial than what they have already have established for, say, for instance, the family court or the child protective services or people in domestic violence? Have you guys thought that far yet in advance, or no? Are you kind of just like,
Elaborate a little more. What do you mean? Like
so
us?
the fun so what I mean is, we know that clearly they're using the funding fraudulently for CPS to kidnap children in the family court and filtering it through that way. What I mean is, say if, for instance, we're speaking in the future that CPS might be defunded. Now we want to take those funds and we want to drop them into a proper resource or proper program that might be a little bit more beneficial than anything that has been out there to protect these families. Have you thought in advance of what might help?
Well, yes, we have.
Okay.
Um, so what we're creating is safe houses. We're working on legislating because, of course, we want them defunded. In fact, a lot of us have, some of us have different opinions on it. I think they need to be abolished, and because we definitely need some type of a system, but the
Right.
one that's in place now is too corrupted and needs to be completely wiped.
It's not helping
So
at all.
no, no, and their funding needs to be cut.
Right.
Um, so some of our long-term goals is legislation. We have one of our founders. There's two founders of the three founders of the coalition, and that is Marika Randoy, and she's in Canada. And we have Mark Esquibel, who's out of Santa Cruz, California. He ran for governor, and a gentleman that has his own media is Alex Baker. And so we're right now we're in the process of forming our 5013C and our 5013C4, and because we want to also be able to legislate, and we also want to be able to help, like say a mother calls and her child was just taken. We want to be able to have enough money to represent her without her having to pay a dime.
Awesome.
So
And what
we
about, have you thought about domestic violence victims? Like I spoke
safe
earlier.
houses.
Okay, because domestic violence victims, like I said, there's a main and I know for myself because I was married for 10 years to a domestic violence abuser, and now that after I had left him, he's abusing my child. So I do have a little conflicting feelings on your topic earlier about 50-50, and it's a
But
great idea.
only if there's no domestic violence.
Right, and I'm glad that you said that, and I just wanted to piggyback on that because it can come across as if it would push a law to put us in jeopardy.
No,
That would give that abuser more time because you have to understand there's dad's groups out there, and some of them are very amazing. But these abusers go into those dad's groups and they re-educate themselves on how to take advantage and manipulate the system and manipulate the courts.
agree.
And because of this one dad or many dads that have went out there and said, we want custody, which they have. I am all for that. They should. If they're a great parent, and they're doing everything just by their child, they should have just as much right as the
Amen.
mother does. I fully agree with that.
Yes.
But again, I can't stress enough on how when there's some people in my situation, many of them, that what happens is when you're in a domestic violence situation, we can't seek the help we want, not only from the cops but from CPS, because then we're put into a situation to where our children are either taken from us and never given back, or we're demoralized and deemed as and pegged as a terrible person, which nobody will fully
Or an
understand.
alienator. Yeah,
Exactly, and nobody will ever understand because every situation is different, and every upbringing is different. Everyone is not given the same opportunity as well in life. But my point is, my concern, and this is just how I feel coming from a victim warrior. I don't say a survivor or even a victim anymore. It's more of a warrior because I've already accomplished that and we're still trying to deal with that situation. But, anyways, from my point of view, I don't want to see something that, even though people are raising awareness to it, which is wonderful, I don't want to be pushed in the wrong person's hands, because then it would subject us to the total opposite of what we're fighting for, is to protect our children. And there's so many people out there that will take advantage of that in a blink of an eye. So I just want to ask, to piggyback on that, is there something, and although I know you mentioned that, this isn't for people that are, of course, abusing, but is there something that's going to be implemented to outline that specifically, so they're aware of that? Because when you're dealing with the court system, everything's got to be black and white and full in detail. So just wondering if there's anything, again, in the future that you have outlined to protect parents such as myself in these situations.
Well, like I said, we're already working on safe houses.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we just had a woman, um, I believe her daughter, gosh, she was maybe 12,
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen her in 3 years. And they
Wow.
placed her with her abuser.
Right.
So, and she has her two older children, but yet they give this abuser the little girl.
Right.
Well, the school had been making reports that they think he's sexually abusing her. So we court watched for this mother, and we got her to get into court under an ex parte order. She was granted the ex parte order. We, the coalition, via a Zoom call, are with her at the hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next morning we go with her to take her ex parte order to the school and pick up that little girl. We have her in hiding now. That's a little about what we do.
Right.
And
So.
The DA has already tried to call her and tell her, you need to either take her back to the father or bring her to our office. We have her in hiding because the first judge granted the order on the evidence from the schools and various other complaints that were founded, and granted her the order to go pick up her daughter so that she could take her to be checked out. She has other medical conditions, and protect her like any loving mother would do. And she's already had the DA called her on Sunday or Saturday saying, you need to bring that child back. We don't even know for certain if it was the DA. It could have been her abuser having a friend call acting like they were the DA. So we waited through the weekend because, of course, the district attorney's office and the courts aren't open on the weekend. So as of yesterday, our one of our founders, Marika, they called the judge that granted the ex parte motion and said, do you have another judge that overrode your order? Because apparently they're saying that she needs to return this child. I haven't gotten the feedback on that yet. In other words, I don't know what's came of that yet. But last evening, as far as our Zoom meeting, she is still safe and in hiding and communicating only with us. And we're protecting her by shielding her and guiding her and directing her. In other words, members have administration or administrators like me's number. We're on Discord. So in other words, like say something emergency is happening right now, I would get a ping or I would get a Discord link. Get on Zoom right now. Even if it's a cop, we're watching a cop trying to take a kid from a woman's home. We get a call and we're like a 911 operators. We're on Zoom and all of us are watching it.
Right.
That's some of the stuff we do. But no, I too am a survivor of domestic violence. When my daughter was 2 years old, was beaten severely by her father because I wanted to leave because he wouldn't stop dealing drugs. They put me in a woman's shelter with my then 2 year old daughter. I lived for 8 months. So I know it's real. But again, when we look at, like my daughter, she grew up without her dad because he chose drugs. Do you know that all she ever wanted was to see her dad?
Hmm.
And I used to, when she was younger, I used to see her cry, and I'd have to say, "Honey, it's not safe.
It's not
It's
her
not
fault
safe.
either.
It's
Yeah.
and it's not her fault, and
Right.
it's not safe." And then when she got into her teenage years, where she was getting rebellious, she demanded. I said,
Hmm.
"Go, Liz."
Yep.
That evening, she said, "Mom, please come get me. Please." She's seen it. The drinking, the snorting lines,
Yep.
but I had to protect her until I felt she was old enough and strong enough, but she still loved her daddy.
Hmm.
You know, he just died 2 years ago, and it killed her, even though they really didn't have a relationship. But I really believe, had he got his life together and became a good father like mine was, took me fishing to the movies, what I mean, he was a cool dad, you know, and that my daughter wouldn't be a heroin addict. So that's why I really fight that they do need two parents, but they need healthy parents.
Right. Right.
That's what we stand for.
Well, yeah, like I said before, you are one amazing, just one out of the many that I have spoken to, and I do so appreciate your support and love and everything that you have done so far for our families and our children. I would like to keep in contact definitely with you so I can know a little bit more about your program and spread the word because I think it's amazing. It's
Amen.
absolutely it's
And I'd
genius
love to
actually.
share with you. Like I said, I'll get you on a Zoom and I'll show you around because we just recently got a New York state leader, and his name is Dijon.
Mhm.
His child was taken, adopted. He, but he's never going to give up, and he's a
Right.
warrior, and he's in some part of New York. So you and him, because you're New York, right?
Yes.
You and him would be firecrackers, and you would love to work with him. And when I get you, when you have time one evening, I'll do a Zoom with you, and
Okay.
I'll get you connected with Dijon, and you guys can start organizing New York for
Right.
boots on the ground. Because we've got, when I get the chance to show you, you'll see more, all the counties we have. And you guys are growing. New York is growing like a firecracker. And
Yes, I would
you,
definitely like to be acquainted with plenty of the people willing to, stand strong, especially in my state. Because, like I said, it seems like it's just so difficult to connect with those
to
people.
assemble.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So, I
see,
mean, it
the
would
other
be,
thing is like in California, there's 58 counties, right? Excuse me. And one of my fellow activists who I do a lot of work with her too, Michelle Chan, and she
mhm,
has California Family Rise. Get her on for an interview. She got her son back and she got the judge removed. This
wow,
woman organizes huge rallies. I've been to like five of hers. We've had 300 to 400 people. She's getting ready to do another one in Contra Costa County in August. So I would recommend that you join her Facebook page. That's called California Families Rise. She's a firecracker. You will
hold on,
love
because I
to
want to
talk.
write this down so I don't forget real quick. Of course, when you need a pen. California Rise, you said her name was? What was it? I'm sorry.
California Families Rise.
Okay, okay, California Families Rise. Okay, awesome.
And Michelle Chan.
Okay.
She's wonderful.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. I don't think people understand how empowering it does feel to actually meet people with the same grounds and the same feelings, pain as well, because I have to put that in there because we've all been through so
Same.
much, even though we have our own story, we've all been through so much.
Amen.
But to stand strong, hold strong, and to stand up for what's right, that alone right there is just an empowering thing. And I can sleep at night, even though I still have my own emotions. I can sleep at night to know for sure that yes, someone's done me wrong. Maybe many has done me wrong, but you know what? We're in this together, and I do truly believe, and I'm going to continue saying it no matter how much people believe that there is no hope. I believe in hope.
I believe in
I,
her.
I believe strongly and firmly on hope. I have been through so much, and I was raised in the system, and not everybody knows my whole story. And I
Yeah.
just just choose not to tell and go to that extremity because I just don't think it's fair and I don't think
Hmm.
it's necessary because I've already made it this far and my child right now is the one that is
Most
needing the help.
important. Amen.
Right. I'm
Yep.
alive right now and I've made it
Yes.
this far. Only through
Yes.
God's grace though. He's the only one.
Amen.
Do I
Amen.
cry still? Girl,
Of
just yesterday
course.
before I but just yesterday before I even started another podcast, I was in tears listening to a beautiful song. It was from K. Michelle and it's called The Mother's Prayer. And I couldn't stop because my son just went with his father yesterday and he stays with him for a whole week because not only have they given him everything even though he has no custody, they've pretty much given him everything that a father with custody has.
Who's
Um,
they?
the court system, the court system.
But
Um,
but if there's no custody order,
I
they.
have I have full custody. He only has visitations. But because I had a hearing, it's my story's on my group if you ever get a chance to look at it. But I was basically threatened to abruptly stop a hearing, or they were going to take my child and give him to an abuser because I had loads of proof showing he was abusing my kids, and it wasn't just hearsay; it was legal documentations from doctors, and what have you.
And they probably threatened to sanction you too, huh?
Well, I didn't get a sanction, but basically it came from my lawyer, which I recorded the whole phone conversation. She pleaded with me not to continue. They didn't give me proper due process. So
You should sue. You should sue her.
I basically agreed. Oh, I plan on it. It's just trying to find the
That's
proper legal.
ineffective counsel. Get on our
Yep.
calls Thursday night, girl, because this
Listen,
is what we do.
she still has not given me, I asked her prior to the hearing, she still has not given me the copy of my transcripts that I legally by right have a right to have free of charge because I am disabled, so I am considered low income. And I'm allowed to have that free of charge and it's going on since March. I have not only
I'm gonna
emailed her,
send you. I'm good. Did you do you know my email address, honey?
offhand probably no, but I do have a pen and piece of paper. You want to message it to me so you don't have to I mean
The messenger's not working. Or yeah, I can do it either way. But I'm gonna send you links to two people.
okay.
One is a constitutional scholar,
Okay.
and he's actually. I'm still going to go after them for what they did because I mean, justice is mine, saith the Lord. But also,
Amen.
like I said, we are his vessel,
Yep.
and he called me to this. And I am going to be going back to Monterey County Board of Supervisors. I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue the state, and I'm potentially going to sue the hospital.
Amen. Good.
So I'm
Good.
not done yet. But
Right.
anyways, I'm gonna give you information to Michael Warnken. He's a constitutional scholar. He's brilliant.
Mhm.
Um, he at best, like me, he said $1,000 retainer, $100 an hour. That is very affordable
Mhm.
because even a paralegal will charge you more than that. But
Right.
this guy's a brainiac. You can even Google him, Michael Warnken. Then the legal expert that we have on every Thursday night, like if you told him what your attorney did, he would say you need to file. He arrested his own DA in his family law case.
Now, there's no statute of limitation, correct, when it deals with systematic abuse, because that's technically what it is,
What
right?
what any attorney will tell you, even Sean, the trial attorney, told me 2 years from the time that you knew it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but
This is just March, so
but
yeah.
what we're doing, we're getting creative. Okay, so if you didn't know that there's a thing called fraud upon the court,
Mhm.
then you could technically say, well, I didn't know it was fraud until now. Your
Right.
statute of limitations starts the beginning the minute you realize it was fraud. So there's a way around it. There's
Yeah.
also, I've gotten conflict from different attorneys. If the case you can prove there was fraud, there's no statute of limitations.
Mm.
So because my case, I would be SOL.
Right.
Angel was adopted out in 2015. He was born in 2012. I'm way past 2 years, right? But I take God's word because God told me they've done you wrong and they need to pay for it.
Mhm.
And I'll walk you through it. And I mean, now I can laugh and I can smile. I still have days when I cry because I do intakes. I hear the news stories coming in right now, and sometimes I can't even do them
Right.
because of my PTSD. But somehow I get it through because I want them in the group so that they're getting the help that they need.
Right.
So we do Zoom meetings 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday during the day. We even do Zooms where, say, you're a pro persona, which means self-represented litigant. We have a work group where if you're working on court documents, we help each other.
Right.
It's like we're in like a class form, right? So we have that. Um, Thursday night's the legal expert. Saturday is CPS calls. Monday, Tuesday is court watcher follow up. Like we watched a case and then we're going to discuss it, and we decide as a coalition if we're going to do a complaint on the judge and ask them to be recused.
That's amazing.
Yes, you would love it, honey, and you would gain a lot of help too. Um, what else could I tell you? Another good group to get involved in is Sean McMillan's Facebook groups. They're called Families Against Government Corruption. In his, I can add you so you'll get a join thing.
Okay.
In the one I'm going to send you the link for him.
Okay.
Once you get in, you'll be able to go up to the top of the Facebook page where it says more, click the drop down menu, and you'll
Mhm.
see a thing that says files. He literally shares his pleadings to his 1983 torts, which are civil
I've read
constitutional
that.
right
Yeah. Right.
constitutional right violations. They're called tort claims,
Yep.
and you can literally download the files. These are the lawyer prepared them. You can
Mhm.
download the files, and then what I'm doing in the coalition is I'm deleting the data out of the files, and I'm making them templates.
Mm.
So in other words, there'll be our coalition is going to have all these templates where a person that says forget these attorneys, because the attorneys are just as bad. There are some good ones,
Right.
but
Right.
there are, especially in the public defender domain, they work for the state. They are not helping their clients.
Right. They get
Okay.
paid regardless, so they don't really care.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I'll also tell you, um, I've grown to be friends with some of these attorneys that helped me along the way. And I mean, like they're my family. I even tell them I love them.
Right.
One of them told me he was sanctioned $20,000 for appealing, and the appeal was right. It, his client had the right to appeal,
Right.
and so he was only fighting he was, and it was according to the law. In other words, he wasn't doing anything unlawful, but because his appeal was so strong and it was pissing off the state, the judge threatened to sanction him. He
I was
said,
told
so,
not to, I was told I couldn't appeal by my lawyer, even though I know I have a right to. But she was basically saying if I do, it's going to be put into front of that same judge, and the judge for sure will take your child from you. And I'm going, wow, another violation of my civil
so
rights.
Tina, what you should have said to her is, are you going to represent me or are you not?
Right.
Because you don't work for the judge. You work for me.
Oh, believe me, I've had plenty of those conversations with her already because I'm a very boisterous type of person, especially when it comes to that. But when it comes down to it, when you go into the courtroom, it doesn't matter really ultimately what I say to my lawyer because if she's not representing me, I can't say anything. I have no right to say anything in the courtroom, and I'm not going to be belligerent and ridiculous, although that's how I want to
Well,
feel.
actually, we often sometimes say, if your attorney's not objecting, say, I object.
Right, right.
Not disrespectful.
Yeah.
And
There's so much that's
it's
going
gonna be
on.
in the transcript.
I had one transcript that they completely altered. Like I got the copy of it and I basically wrote in everything that I knew that they were lying about and that they switched up. It's written all on the back of my transcript and everything's underlined and I'm going, "Oh my god, they literally just altered my." So I can't wait to see when I actually finally get this hearing transcript if they ever provide it for me. I can't wait to see what they put in there cuz I only talked for 2 minutes. I only spoke for 2 minutes. They gave dad from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock for testimony. But as
Was it
soon as
an
I
evidentiary hearing?
Yes. But guess what? They based our hearing off of his domestic violence past history, our history, and his other 7 children that were taken away from him. It was never to hold him accountable for my baby and for the bruising and the injuries that he caused. When it came to me, they asked me questions about our domestic violence, and you can clearly tell that the judge was not interested in listening to me whatsoever. She readjourned the case for the next day. And in the midst of that is when my lawyer pleaded with me. She goes, "Please, I'm begging you, don't." She's steering into giving your, and I'm going, "Don't you have to have circumstantial evidence or a change of circumstances in order to take?" Because I had already had custody of my child, anyways, full custody, because through the divorce it was granted to me. And I'm going, "Don't you have to have a change of circumstances in order to take custody away from me, anyways?" I basically had to take the okay, I'll shut my mouth, just so I can keep my son, because I wasn't going to risk my son being snatched from me and taken and given to the abuser there, and I have to wait at least 6 months, almost to probably a year, to even visit my son. That wasn't worth that, so I had to learn to shut my mouth and kind of bow down to that. But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But it's still upsetting because he's allowed, because of me doing the hearing. Dad was given more time. He was actually giving him from every other weekend to every weekend. Now 2 non-consecutive weeks, full weeks in the summertime. And that's where we're at now. And this is why I'm doing so many podcasts in the week, because I'm trying to keep myself sane right now. So I'm not in my room crying and, God forbid, thinking my son's coming home in a box, or me doing things that might retaliate and make things worse. Um, is it hurtful? You damn right. You damn
And
right it's hurtful.
scary. And
It
scary.
it is hurtful because I know the things that come out of my son's mouth. He tells his other siblings, and this man is destroying our whole household. He is destroying the mere character of my baby. And I don't know if you've seen the recent post that I had put of the recording of CPS coming to my house the other day, but the point of that was to show people that this accuser and abuser made a false accusation against myself and my boyfriend that I've been with for 2.5 years. And they came to my house in a quickness. But you guys have on record, you've even indicated him abuse. You've even known and seen his past history of abuse. You've even stated in your narrative that you do not want my son left unattended, and confirmed it here while I was recording you. But you still have done nothing to take my child out of that situation. Nothing.
And your attorney's not presenting your case.
No, she's not
You
protecting the
need to
well
get
being.
on the Thursday night call, girl, because we need to get her off your record.
Well, the
You,
case is closed
you,
now. It
oh,
was
is it?
March 3rd, March 5th. We closed the hearing out, and they come to the conclusion that Dad was going to stay in the child's life and not have supervised visitation, because that's what I requested. I never said I didn't want him to be. I gave him every
And
ample
did your
opportunity.
attorney object to anything?
She stated that they would not go backwards because he had our. I was, mind you, the court demanded me to supervise him, even though we had a domestic violence situation. I supervised him for 2.5 months. I went into court to show that he was still abusing my child right in front of me in the public library with witnesses, and the judge denied that motion. Every time I went in to protect my child, she retaliated and gave him more time. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. So I mean, it's beyond. I would like to take it to Supreme Court or the appeal court, but I don't know how to. And any lawyer that I call right now, they don't want to deal with it because it's a judge, and they keep saying that they have immunity.
I want you to talk to Michael Warnken. He is going to comfort your heart so much, honey. And he'll say, "Well, I got, you could do this." I mean, he will give you hope. I don't know how this man stumbled upon me, but he did. And I say it's a godsend. You will
Right.
like him too. I want you, and he'll talk to you all night long for free. He ain't about the money. I mean,
Right.
if I decide to do these suits, then I am going to retain him. I haven't done it yet.
Right.
And he doesn't, he's not about the money. He cares. He's seen too much of this.
Right.
And in general, many of the people on our coalition are like you and I. We've seen too much.
Hmm.
We It's got to stop. And it goes all the way up to the bench.
Well, with the 1983 code that you were talking about,
It's a
I do
tort.
believe, yeah, I believe I read an article about that before. And I think when I looked on YouTube, they were saying that not every judge does have immunity. Am I correct on that? Because there are some, I can't remember, there's two different branches of judges. One is like a lifelong, longer term judge than the other. Maybe I misunderstood it,
Well,
but
um, that is a big, big thing up in the air right now because, like our coalition, we have people that are even trained that are working in the legislative side. So one thing that they're trying to do is remove false reporting. In other words, oh, it was an anonymous tip. No.
Yes. Yep.
We want to remove false reporting. We
Hmm.
want to remove judicial immunity.
Well, because we have a right to face our accuser, correct?
Amen. Amen.
So why
But
is it
but
that?
that's what's been so hard,
Hmm.
Tina, is they are immune. Even the social workers. Did you ever have a chance to watch the Netflix series on Gabriel?
Yeah, actually, my CPS worker that was in our life for a year and a half investigating dad actually is the one that referred me to watching that. She goes, "I am in tears for you." And she said she told me about it. She said, "Watch the show because it reminds me of your son, and I am so sorry, and I'm fighting for you, and I am so trying to help you. And it seems as if my supervisor continues to back me in the corner." She quit. She's no longer a CPS worker anymore, because she
I
was
hope
just
she
discussing
blows
it with
the
me.
whistle.
I hope. Well, she did want to be a part of my podcast, but unfortunately, I have again some conflicting feelings because my audience they don't trust workers and they have every right to feel that way. I still don't trust CPS
Yeah,
workers
that's how
myself.
we are too. But fortunately, we have found
You got to find
we
someone
we
that's
got
gonna.
a whistleblower judge in our
Yep.
group.
Yep,
But
we got to find some
that
people to
that
say
stuff's
something.
anonymous. We don't share that.
Right.
But but she's to our benefit because we can
Exactly.
ask her judge questions. Nobody knows where we're getting our knowledge from, but we're getting it, and it's
Right.
working. We're
Yep.
having a lot of success.
Right.
So we welcome you to our coalition. Let's collaborate.
Thank you.
That's what we collaborate with Dad Talk, California Families Rise, Family Forward Project. Um, we're, our motto is we're stronger together.
Right.
But so give me one night when you have a minute. We'll private message each other, and I'll do a Zoom with you, and I'll show you the entire base camp, so you see it from a different perspective, and your mind will go boom. This is great.
I've
So
already gotten that feeling. Like I said, I thought it was just a brilliant, a genius idea that whoever came up with it is just amazing for you guys to come together and have this program. Because
yeah,
my mind was already blown away when I had started paying just a tidbit of the information that was coming through. I was going, "Oh my God, this is very overwhelming,
we
but
ain't
this is
playing.
awesome."
We
You
ain't
know,
we
right?
we
But
say we're unafraid, unapologetic.
right.
Um, what else did I want to tell you? Well, I'll private message you Michael Warnken and Michael Alexander. Michael Alexander is our legal expert that comes on Thursday nights. He's the one that did a citizen arrest in the courtroom on his DA.
Wow. I would have loved to seen that one.
It's so
Oh,
great.
I would have loved to seen that. Oh my God.
And and he won. He got 4950,
Wow.
and his children are now in their 30s, but he says I will do this for the rest of my life because it's his calling.
Awesome. That is so
And
awesome
then
to
if you
hear.
ever get on the Zoom, if you ever get on the Zoom when he's on there, he never does his face, but so he just uses a screen cover, and
Hmm.
it's of Bozo the Clown because he
Gotta
loves
have a little
not.
humor.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that he finds joy in going after these corrupt judges.
Yeah. Yeah.
He it's like he says
It's
ever since
exhilarating.
I
It's gotta be.
ever since I seen it and I lived it and they tried to take my kids, I can never stop.
Right. Right. That's awesome to have that power and strength. Oh my God. Like I said, it's just an empowering feeling to have
Hmm.
so many with the mutual feelings that we have and the agenda that we have and working together. It's an amazing feeling. We are going to wrap up. I am going to thank you again so very much. You are just amazing.
Thank
And
you.
I will get in touch with you probably either later on tonight or maybe tomorrow, so we can connect and network a little bit better, and hopefully
And I want to get you connected up with the Dijon. His name. He's a very
definitely.
handsome man,
Thank you.
but he's on fire, man. And so he's our New York State leader, and I'm sure he could use help. Um,
Awesome.
once you get into the base camp more too, we have we have a store.
Hmm.
There's car magnets. There's yard signs because we ain't being quiet no more.
Right. Now, do you do these just specifically for yours, or say if I had an event and I needed something, would you guys? I mean, of course, I would pay for it. But like, would you
We
be able
don't
to
charge
design?
anybody.
Oh, so like if I needed wristbands or a
Well,
banner to put.
if you buy merchandise, yeah, you would have to pay for that. Um, but we have a woman in the coalition now. Like I said to you, the unique thing about this coalition is so far there is not one person in it that hasn't experienced some type of corruption.
Right.
So we have this wonderful woman that owns her own printing business, and
Mm,
she's doing all of our um, inventory.
okay.
Okay, but the money from it will go into the 501 that will be able to help victims that don't have any money, like if they need a motel or they need a safe house or for
Right.
food, for God's sake.
Right.
We want to be able to have money um, to help these people because that's one of our other um, standings in the founders of the coalition. We don't take money from anybody. If I
Right.
mean, if they want to if we get donors, that's different.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, Kathy. Thank you so. Oh, yep. Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you so much again for sharing your story. And you had a lot of information that I'm pretty sure so many people will benefit from.
I
Um,
hope so.
Again, later on, I just want to tell the viewers that I will be posting her coalition on this post. So if you're interested, you can shoot an email and sign up for the base camp. It is a wonderful, wonderful program so far. Like I said, I have already involved myself. I haven't fully educated myself, but I definitely will now after the information that was provided today. Again, thank you, Kathy. Um, I also want to tell everybody to please don't forget to go to change or care2.com and sign the family court and CPS petition that I have on there. Again, it is designed specifically to protect domestic violence and child abuse victims. I would very much appreciate that. Please sign, share, and like, and we will see you Thursday. We have another special edition podcast. Thank you so much, Kathy. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Bye bye. God bless
Bye.
you as well.
Thank you.